Today I'm going to talk about music merchandising. All right, so let's get right to this. I'm going to talk about the definition of what merchandising is. I'm going to talk about merch rights. I'm going to talk about your grant of rights. Then I'm going to talk about merchandising companies. We're also going to look at the types of deals. We're going to talk about independent merchandising, and then that will pretty much wrap it up, okay? I'm going to do a quick overview, maybe about 10 minutes or so. Let's see if I can do it in 10 minutes, all right? Feel free to actually leave any messages or questions and I'll be sure to get right back to you, okay? So first of all, what is merchandising? Merchandising refers to the process of selling merchandise, which includes t-shirts, hats, stickers, programs, posters, and other goods that bears the artist's name and often bears his or her likeness. It can generate substantial income, subsidize expenses, and help to build awareness and loyalty for your brand. Let's talk about those last three things, okay? It can generate substantial income. Wow, right? Taylor Swift grossed, I believe, $1 billion on her Eras tour in merchandising. That is absolutely insane. So, you know, we don't think of ourselves as being in the merchandising business when you become an artist, but you are, okay? It's a very substantial form of income. Number two, subsidize expenses. When you're an independent artist and you're not making any money from your streams and you're not making any money from your shows because you're paying to play, and you know, where else can we make money? And that is in merchandising, okay? So if we go out and, and we go out and let's just say, for example, play a show in San Francisco, we drive up from Los Angeles, and we're not really making that much. We're making $200, but we could sell maybe another $200 in merch. Man, that is going to help subsidize expenses. And then finally, help build brand awareness and loyalty. The way I like to look at merchandising is I call it like a walking billboard. If we go up to San Francisco and play and we leave someone with a shirt, they're going to wear that and go to school the next day and everybody's going to be talking about it. And they're going to have that shirt for the next year or two. And, you know, it's going to start conversation. So this is very, very important that you guys realize that, okay? All right, let's talk about merchandising rights real quick. So what are your merchandising rights? There's two different types of merchandising rights. There's your trademark rights, which is the actual right to a fictitious name. It gives you the right to do business in trade using that name, okay? And then there's also what's called the right of publicity. That is your right to decide who, if anyone, can use your face or your likeness on a shirt. Those are essentially your two rights, okay? Now, before we go any further, we need to talk real quick about having a cool name, right? So you have to really spend a lot of time to come up with a really cool fictitious name that you can use in trade, right? And how are you going to do that? Well, generally speaking, the one technique I like to use, and then you can look it up in the book, Music Marketing for the DIY Musician, is I like to use mood. I like to project the mood in the name. So when you hear the name, you get the vibe of what type of group that you are. And one that I would like to give as an example is Marilyn Manson, right? Marilyn Monroe is a glamorous movie star. Charles Manson was a notorious facilitator of murder. You put the two together and you get glamorous murder or glam metal, which is what Marilyn Manson was. So I thought that was a brilliant name, okay? Also, while we're on that note, you also have to have a cool logo as well. So there's generally four types of logos. There's word marks, which is just basically the name in a cool font. There's letter marks, which are essentially the acronym in a cool font. There's a brand mark, which is a very cool image. And then there's a combined mark, which is an image and a word, okay? That's the most common for bands, and letter marks or word marks are the most common for solo artists. So what can we do with the rights? The first thing that you could do with your rights is if you get a record deal, end up signing those rights over to a record company, particularly if you're doing like a 360 deal, right? And that could happen. Or you can sign those rights over directly to a merchandiser, such as in the case if you were to secure your rights when doing a deal and end up doing a deal directly with the merchandising company. Or you could just hang on to your merchandising rights and you can do it yourself, okay? Let's talk about merchandising companies now. So there are like merchandising companies out there, sort of like record companies. And we have all different types. You have like what the 500-pound gorillas, and they're like the people that deal with big artists like Beyonce and big artists. You have mid-sized artists or mid-sized merchandisers that work with sort of maybe more mid-sized artists. You have small merchandisers, and then you have what's called local print companies. For DIY artists or independent artists, it's most likely that you're going to be working with local printers, okay? Now, the bigger merchandising companies actually give advances to their artists in advance of the money they think they're going to earn, and then they pretty much follow you around on tour and count the merch into the venues and then count the merch out of the venues. So they handle it for you. Of course, they also design the merch with your approval. They make the merch. They handle things like VIP, events and things like that backstage. And okay, if you get to the point when you're making, when you've got a merchandising deal, be sure to invite me to your parties. Okay. All right, real quick. Let's talk of the types of merchandising deals. There's two types of merchandising deals. There's a tour merchandising deal, which is the most common, right? And then there's retail merchandising. That is the selling of merchandising in retail stores, which is not as common, simply because when people go to a show, they want a souvenir and they're all hyped up and maybe even drunk. And typically you don't walk around in a retail shop drunk wanting a souvenir. Then there's also maybe one more we should talk about too, which is called sub-licenses. And sub-licenses are weird things like lunch boxes and things like that. Miley Cyrus made beach towels. On the front of the beach towel was her body, and on the other side was the back of her body. She also made gold plated rolling papers. The band called Pussy Riot made balaclavas, and also they had like a doormat with the finger, kind of interesting. The band Kiss actually made Kiss caskets, and they also had like a Kiss viewfinder, like where you look in and you press it, and kind of interesting. Ozzy Osbourne had a toy bat where you could take off the head, and also had grilling tools. So you could get really, really creative. Let's talk about merch contracts really quickly with the big companies. Pretty much what they do is they would take a net split, which basically is the net, which are all the money that comes in, minus credit card fees, minus taxes, minus manufacturing and design, and then other verifiable expenses, what's like a hall fee. That is the fee they have to pay to the venue for selling merch. And then they take 25% and you get 75% of that, okay? Advances, they often pay you in advance of the money they think they're going to earn, and that's usually projected on the number of performances you're going to do, the capacity and size of the venue, the average number of people that are expected to come to the venue and buy merchandising, okay? Now, this is really, really important that you understand this. Merchandising advances are not only recoupable, right? So, the money that you're supposed to get, they take their 25% and put it in their pocket, and then they take your 75% and put it towards the money that they gave you in advance, right? But this money is 100% returnable, which means like if the band breaks up and you don't do the projected number of dates you said you were going to do, they could ask for the unrecouped balance of the advance back, and that could be dangerous, okay? Then the agreement term is usually based on months, like 18 to 24 months. It used to be based on album tour cycles, but because artists are just releasing singles these days, it's usually based on months, okay? A couple other things real quick, you guys. Creative issues. You have to give them approval of the designs they make. They're not just going to make designs and put them out there. They're definitely going to, just got bit by a bee. Ow. All right, anyway. You have to approve the designs that they make, okay? All right, moving on. I'm getting attacked out here. It must be my cologne or something. The most popular design is the T-shirt where you have the band on the front, and then on the back you have all the tour dates. All right, and there's all kinds of other designs that you can make. There's lyric T-shirts where you have like a cool lyric or a phrase from a song. Okay, so it's 9:56. My God, I've got 3 minutes or 3 seconds. But I'm going to go over time, it looks like. There's also another clause in merchandising agreements. It's called exclusivity. That basically means that they have the exclusive rights to sell the merchandising. You can't have 2 or 3 merchandisers at once. So they might say we want all the rights to the US. They might even say we want all the rights to the US and Europe as well. Sometimes you might be able to separate those rights though. What else? There's something called a sell-off period. That basically means that they have the rights to sell any extra product after the term of the agreement expires. So that if they have extra merch left over, it's not like they're stuck with it. They have 120 days to get rid of it. And they can't stockpile before the end of the term, meaning they can't make a whole bunch of it before the term. All right, and then independent merchandising. I'm going to close out on this, you guys. This is where you make your own merchandise. I mean, literally, you could buy a screen printer and do it in your own cellar. Lots of independent artists do this. Or what you could do is just go with the printer. There's so many printers out there. All you need to do is like choose a company, submit artwork, like select a t-shirt or the type of style of t-shirt that you want, decide on the right quantity, learn how to sell, learn how to hustle, and and sell some merch at your shows. Now, if you're a poor independent artist and you're still eating top ramen, then there's also what's called merch on demand, which basically means that you don't have to make anything. You just go with a company like, let's just say, Cafe Press or something like that, or Redbubble. And what they do is you give them your logo, and whenever somebody requests like a hat or something, they'll make the hat, and then they'll say, look, we want $15. And then you tell them, what do you want? So you might say, well, I want $5. So then they'll sell it for 20. But they literally do everything. You don't have to buy anything up front. They basically make it for you on demand when your fans request it. They send it to your fan, and then you get $5. I mean, like, why not have a merch store? Like, literally every one of you could have a merch store. All right, you guys, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet. My name is Bobby Borg, helping musicians turn the art into a more successful business, also known as Coach. You guys know how to reach out and get me if you have any questions. That's basically a short convo on merchandising, and I'm just hanging out in the beautiful sun right now. Check it out. It's gorgeous. This is our California day. You can't beat that. And I just got stung by a damn bee. So I'm going to go take care of that sting. Take care, you guys. Love you. Let me just check out real quick who's online with me. Let's just see. Okay, we got a couple people on board here. All right, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.